Welcome to Servant of the Fates. Today I wanted to share these decks with you. They're not necessarily new in the market, but they are definitely new to my collection. For those of you who have been following me on Tumblr, you know that I've spent the past 1.5 years really teaching divination to initiates, to students. And these are some of the gifts that they gave me by way of thanks. And I wanted you to see them in case you're also interested in purchasing them for yourself or in gifting them to someone else that you believe will be in need of them or who will really like them. These decks, for example, the initiates made sure that there is some kind of personal reason for why they picked them for me, each deck, and I'm going to share them with you as I show you the cards. The first one is Tarot Vintage by Los Garabeo. It's very popular. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this online, whether you're watching pick-a-card readings or other deck hauls. But either way, the initiates gave this to me because, and it may not be obvious if you watch my readings here because it's all general and modern, but when it comes to private personal readings, I only use traditional meanings. I am a very old school traditional reader, and Tarot Vintage, of course, pretends to be an old deck, even though it was released recently. So they gave this to me because they said, and Maria especially, one of the initiates, said that maybe it kind of reflects the way that I read the cards. The box is very sturdy. I love it. I feel like I can carry it with me when I'm flying, when I'm traveling, and it's not going to be damaged at all. It's quite thick, as you can see, right? Made of cardboard. This is the little white book that comes with it. You will see the same effect later in the cards. So as always with Los Garabeo, it's multiple languages, and like the first 1/4 part is all about meanings. So this is the major arcana part. You have keywords there and a paragraph about what the cards mean. So this is helpful not only if you're a beginner, but if you want to refresh yourself, right? Your knowledge when it comes to the meanings, modern meanings mostly, that people attribute to the cards. And the cards themselves, they look like this. Aren't they lovely? The backs are like that. It's your typical Rider-Waite, original Rider-Waite design, like in this one, right? The original Rider-Waite tarot deck. But it has that vintagey effect, of course. And yeah, the cards look like this. So the colors are subdued, and you have like this old spots kind of effect, and they kind of vary per card. It's not the same one, as you can see, between the Three of Cups and the King of Cups. So subdued colors, vintage feel. I do find them very beautiful. They are, of course, very smooth though and shiny, as you can see the light reflecting on them. So it's glossy. But yeah, they do give off that vintage feel. If I had one improvement or critique or comment, it's going to be the sides of the cards, because it doesn't look as authentic here, right? I mean, if you just look at it this way, you wouldn't think that these are vintage cards. So I wished they had done something there as well to make it look even more authentic. But other than that, because look at them, they're very similar, right? Like the sides. But other than that, I love the size. I love the feel. It's your typical Los Garabeo cardstock. So it's not so thick, but it's not so flimsy either. And yeah, I just love the feel. And I feel like it's really sweet that they gave this to me because of the way that I do my readings. The second one is pretty obvious. The Rose Oracle, they gave this to me because I'm Venusian, Taurus rising, Libra moon, stellium in the 7th house. And the rose is Venus's flower. So I love how artsy the box is. It's very unique, and again, it's sturdy, but it did get damaged when I traveled with it. I made sure that I kept it safe, but you know how they are with luggage, so that happened anyway, but it didn't really affect what's inside. It's quite thick, the little white book that comes with it. But as you know, I just skim it, I just browse it a bit, because when it comes to oracle cards, it's not like tarot where it's very structured and there are billions of years, I'm exaggerating, of meaning that are ingrained in them. Oracle cards, it's really about your intuition, right? What your intuition says about the situation when you look at a specific card. But it's helpful to skim and to see what the author intended is meaning for each card. But I would really advise you to listen to what your heart and your mind and your soul tells you about each card when we're talking about oracle cards. So they're like this. The design is quite lovely, matte, as you can see. No designs on the edges, not gilded or anything like that, which is actually kind of fine. I mean, it's okay, because sometimes designs on the edges, like when you put something shiny in there, it just gets damaged and it reveals the age of the deck. So I guess this way it's gonna look young forever, especially because I really do take care of my cards, as you know, if you again follow me on Tumblr. So I love how subdued the colors are, right? It's beautiful, subtle, and yeah, very, very attractive. The cards look like this. So it's quite ethereal, right? There's not like one big focus. This one is about the sun. It's pretty obvious, but also pretty abstract at the same time. And I kind of enjoy that. So you have the title. This one is called The Rose Garden. And you have some keywords there to guide your intuition when you're using them for meditation or for divination. This one says innocence, forgiveness, and there's a piece of advice there as well. Be gentle with yourself. So the cards, they have overall a similar color palette. You have your greens, your pinks, of course, because it's about the rose, and your yellows, and vibrant colors, but subdued by the effect and the decision to make the cards matte. And I have to say, I'm not a very big fan of oracle cards as compared, because like I said, right, I'm a traditional reader. So when compared to tarot or Sibilla or Lenormand, oracles are kind of wishy-washy for me in general compared to the systematic ways of reading. But I have to say, this deck is quite serious and profound and accurate. So I really recommend getting this if you're someone who's into roses and oracle cards. This third one is not brand new. As you can see, it's got its signs of wear and tear, but that just makes it even more personal to me, because like I mentioned earlier, I taught divination for 1.5 years. And I advised the students, the initiates, what we call them, to purchase or acquire their own Sibilla deck. And this deck is something that's been used by 3 people before me. That's what I've been told, at least. And that makes it really special for me, because this deck is experienced. You know, it's read for a lot of people, and there's wisdom that's been accumulated in every card and every page. This one is really, really beautifully designed. You can see the wear and tear on the box, but not so much on the cards. Everyone who is, I believe, everyone that I know at least, who is a traditional reader is someone who really believes in the sanctity of decks and therefore truly takes care of them. As you can see by the reflection of the light, this deck is glossy, and I just love the design because it's so classic, right? It's your typical traditional tarot deck, so to speak, when it comes to the design. It's very tarot-ish, and the size actually is very tarot-ish as well. We're going to make that word official. So Sibilla cards are usually only 65 to 70% the size of this, but this is almost the same size as a tarot deck. So it's bigger than your usual, and that's probably why the mom of one of the initiates recommended it, because it's easier to look at the imagery. Now, I have to say, when it comes to Sibilla, it's not like tarot where every single picture and symbol contributes to the reading. Sibilla is more about the name, the inherent meanings associated with the name of the card, and also the suit, right? And the lottery numbers that are associated with each card. But it still helps your intuition, it still helps you remember, and it evokes memories and truths in you that will help you really convey the message, the prediction, the advice that your current needs to hear. So look at this watercolor. How wonderful is that? I love how vibrant everything is, right? Look how rich the imagery is. Look how beautiful. And it just really reminds me of the fairy tale books that I had when I was a kid. That's why I really am in love with this deck, and as I am with the rest, so grateful to be the next owner of this marvelous, wise deck of cards. Isn't it beautiful? I can't stop. I'm really in love with the design. So if you are into Sibilla, I highly recommend getting this deck because they feel so beautiful in your hands. And yeah, the designs are just really helpful when it comes to evoking memories and strengthening, activating your intuition and your subconscious. There are also keywords along with the name of the card, so that should also help you further refine the prediction that you're going to make. This next one is really cool because I remember one of the lessons that I taught the initiates is that when you're doing divination, your instrument doesn't have to be something that's manufactured for that purpose. It doesn't have to be something like these decks that are definite tarot oracle decks, right? It could even be any random book. If you set the intention that when I go to this page, read that paragraph, that is what's going to happen to me tomorrow. Because when it comes to divination, it's spirituality, right? It's faith. It's all about the intention that you set. So this deck that they gave me is a throwback to what I said in that lesson. This is actually a toy, okay? This is not an oracle deck. This is not an old system like tarot or Sibilla. This is just something that's been made for kids, I believe, and it's fortune-telling cards that answer your questions for fun. So it's like, maybe it's a yes or no question, but sometimes the answers are kind of tricky. Sometimes they're very clear, like not at all, absolutely, yes, you got it, yes, definitely, zero chance. It can be very harsh, right? Answer, unsure, ask again. So it's like a magic 8-ball, right? It's for fun. It can be very blunt, but like I said, it's all about the intention that you set. So even if it's a toy, if you invoke your higher power or your higher self before you shuffle the cards and ask your question, then you can trust that this deck, a toy though it is, will give you the answer that you need to hear. So that's what I really like about this. It's my first deck. I have like 100 by now. It's my first deck that's really not made for divination, and I'm so happy to have something like this. Speaking of decks that aren't really technically decks, this one is not made for divination. It doesn't give you answers. Rather, as the box says, it gives you questions that you then answer yourself. So it's really for meditation. And the reason that the initiates gave this to me is because part of our divination lessons is scrying, and scrying is all about meditation, asking your higher self or your higher power questions that will then trigger the answers in your unconscious and your subconscious. So these are square cards. The back looks like that, like the one on the cover, right? And each one has like a close-up of a door, as you can see, right? Different designs. And the questions are provocative. Some are simpler, some are more difficult to answer, but just some examples. What are my most important values? How are they reflected in my life and in my daily decisions? This one, what if everything is as it should be? How would that make me feel? That one's quite interesting. This one, how or in what way do I experience myself when I'm alone? Introverts know the answer to that. Extroverts, not so much maybe. What is the most important thing for me in this moment? So these are all very introspective questions, and I love that each card has a different design. Like I said, they're close-ups of doors, right? So it's about the doorway to your mind, to your heart, to your soul. If I didn't feel shame or fear, what would I do now? I love that question. I do use these for meditation, but also when I'm having a dinner party, I definitely bring this out and I just let people pick a card and answer honestly as they could. And yes, they do answer that way because after a few glasses of beer or wine, who doesn't tell the truth, right? This last one they gave to me for no other reason than it's on my wish list. So tarot, Sibilla, Lenormand, these are cartomancy systems that were passed down to me, that were taught to me. But Kipper, this originated from Germany, is something that I had to learn myself. Tony, she has a book and I purchased it and read it, and that's how I know how to read the system. This is, I believe, her second deck on Kipper. And yeah, it's been on my wish list for a while. And I talked about it in one of my classes, so the initiates bought it for me. I also kind of damaged it while traveling. I really have to be more careful, but either way, I didn't really hurt the cards inside. So it's called Rainbow because the cards have been segregated into colors that are reflective of their function, how they're read. So this is very, very helpful. It's talking about how the main characters are just main characters. You don't attribute meanings to them. The green cards are people cards. And then there are different kinds, categories of cards as well. The pink ones are connectors. They connect two cards to each other. You don't read them by themselves. They don't have a meaning. And then this one is about cause and effect. So when it's yellow, whether you're looking to the right of the card, that is the reason, that's the cause. And then to the left is the effect, the impact of that card and the reading in the life of the person that you are reading for. So this is a Kipper how-to in itself, but I would really recommend looking at the author's other work because her book and her first deck are even more in-depth when it comes to really mastering the system. The cards look like this. I love the sides, silver, right? I hope they don't come off too soon as they do in some decks. So I love how shiny that is. Matte, right? Velvety matte. And you have the rainbow design on the backs. And as you saw in the book, they're quite simple, the designs, which is how it should be, right? So you can see very clearly who and what you are reading about. As we said, the colors are not there just for design, but for meaning and interpretation as well. Like, for example, gift. The card that's above it will be the giver of the gift, and the one that's below it will be how that gift will impact the life of the person or simply the recipient of the gift. So Kipper is a very Virgo earthy system because it's like a map. It is logical, it is technical, and I know logical is an ironic word to use for fortune telling because fortune telling, as a lot of people say, is pseudoscience. We, of course, have a different perspective on that, we the enlightened ones, so to speak. But yeah, when it comes to divination, Kipper is the most systematic, technical, logical card there is. This deck is just something that's also very accurate like Letterman and very blunt like Sibilla. So if you don't know how to read with Kipper yet, I really recommend checking out this deck. It has cards that will really help beginners. I don't think I'm a beginner anymore, but I am still mastering the system, and that's why I really wanted this deck. And as you can see, the book is pretty thick, and maybe after you've purchased this deck or purchased it for someone, you also want to check out the author's other works because she, I believe, is the #1 living expert on the system. So there you go. These are my new decks, and I really do recommend that you get them for yourself as well because so far they have been so helpful to me. More information about them, this one, Empowering Questions. It is published by sunnypresent.com, so that's how you can find a copy of that. This one, Fortune Telling Cards, that is manufactured and distributed by Gift Republic. This one is, of course, a typical deck that you can easily find in spiritual shops, unlike these two that are more for meditation and game, right? I Misteri de la Sibilla. This one is, like I said, Los Scarabeo, Tarot Vintage. And the Rose Oracle is, of course, very mainstream. It's by Rebecca Campbell. And this one, Rainbow Kipper, is by Tony and Steven, who designed the images. So there you go. I hope this inspired you to really keep pursuing your divination journey. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you, as always, for joining me today. And I hope to see you again soon. Take care.